After a very busy day with the NHL trade deadline and many transactions taking place today, in today's video we're going to recap the last bit of the trades here that came in either at or near the deadline and some that trickled in after, including guys like Wayne Simmonds, Marcus Johansson, and a whole lot more. We'll recap everything else coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned, we have an incredibly busy day today. All kinds of videos posted, all kinds of deals to be discussed today. And now in this video, we're going to discuss the remaining ones that we haven't gotten to here so far. So we have many other videos posted today for many of the trades that happened earlier today. We're going to get started here with the Wayne Simmonds trade. The Philadelphia Flyers have decided to trade the longtime member of their team, Wayne Simmonds, over to the Nashville Predators in exchange for Ryan Hartman and a draft pick. It's a 4th-round pick in the 2020 NHL draft, which can be upgraded to a 3rd-round pick. It's a conditional if the Predators make it past the 1st round of the playoffs. Now, I really like the Predators acquiring Wayne Simmonds. Personally, I think he's going to be a great fit there, but he is the kind of player like some of the other wingers on the trade board today that really would be a good fit with many clubs. He certainly has a lot of experience. He brings that grit, toughness, and the ability to score. He can probably play anywhere in their top 3 lines. So I really think this is a great deal for Nashville. After seeing what some of the other teams in the Western Conference did to bulk up today, this was a great way for them to respond. Of course, Simmons had a fantastic last game with the Flyers in that outdoor game against the Pittsburgh Penguins the other day. It's a great way for him to kind of cap off his Flyers career and now have a chance to go on here for the Predators and have a shot at the playoffs and see what happens. Of course, he's a pending UFA, so no guarantees he stays in Nashville beyond the end of the season. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see where his career takes him next, whether he stays in Nashville or carries on elsewhere. Now, next up here, we got Marcus Johansson being traded from the New Jersey Devils over to the Boston Bruins. In return, the Boston Bruins get a 2nd-round pick in 2019 and a 4th-round pick in 2020. Now, Marcus Johansson going to Boston is relatively interesting. Of course, you recall not that long ago, Brad Marchand was suspended for an elbow to the head for Johansson, which concussed him and had him out of action for some time. So certainly will be interesting to see those two on the same team. I'm sure they can get past any differences they may have had and work together here towards a common goal. But Johansson to Boston is not too bad. I mean, it's been rumored for some time now that the Bruins were looking either at a 3rd-line center, maybe an extra winger to kind of increase their secondary scoring. They added Charlie Coyle not too long ago, and now they add Johansson. Certainly, there's plenty of bigger names out there that have more offensive output right now that they could have acquired, but the price tags were pretty high. And clearly, after last year's trade deadline deal with Rick Nash, I know the Bruins seemed to be a little bit gun shy to pull the deal here, in paying a big price tag for a major rental player. So this one's a little bit lower key, but still add some experience and some offensive punch to their top 9. So I do like the deal for Boston, but at the same time, I do think some of the other teams might have gotten better deals done. But I understand why Don Sweeney didn't want to give up too much of the future there. So overall, it's an interesting choice, but not too bad of a deal for the Boston Bruins for the price that they ended up paying to acquire this player. Pittsburgh Penguins were relatively active with most of their stuff coming at the end of the day, which trickled in either at or after the deadline. They did end up trading Tanner Pearson over to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for defenseman Erik Gudbranson. Now, of course, Pearson started the season with the LA Kings. Of course, we saw Pearson traded from LA over to Pittsburgh for Carl Hagelin, 1-for-1. And of course, both those guys ended up being on the move here yet again. We saw Hagelin being traded a few days ago, and now Pearson's on the move here yet again, going to Vancouver in exchange for Gudbranson. So obviously, the Pittsburgh Penguins definitely were looking to add some help to the blue line, which they accomplished here today. Gudbranson's, certainly a fairly big-sized defender, provides some grit and some toughness back there. Not the greatest defensively, but in a 3rd pairing role where he can be kind of sheltered his minutes a little bit, I think he can certainly succeed there. I mean, obviously, where they had traded Jimmy Alexiak earlier this year, he can kind of do a similar type of role and provide that similar type of defender back there. So not too bad of a deal really for the Penguins. Pearson kind of rejuvenated himself a little bit in Pittsburgh. He wasn't lighting it up by any means, but he was scoring at a better pace than he was in LA. And then now he gets traded again, and they certainly get the help on the blue line that they certainly need it for sure. So overall, I kind of like this deal for the Penguins, and it's not too bad either for the Canucks. If Pearson can get going with Vancouver like he was back with LA and kind of rejuvenate himself even further and play with a lot of those younger, fast, skilled players that the Canucks have in their top six, then very well might be a pretty good deal for them longer term here as well. The Pittsburgh Penguins were not done there. They traded youngster Josh Sebastian Day to the Florida Panthers in exchange for defenseman Chris Weidman. So, of course, Weidman's been on the move quite a bit this year. Started the year with the Senators, got traded to the Oilers, then he's over to the Panthers, and now he goes over to the Penguins. So, Weidman's certainly making his way around the NHL this season, but again, provides more defensive depth for the Penguins. He can play that right side. He can play power play. He's a fairly good puck mover back there. Not the strongest defensively, tad on a bit on the smaller side as well. But, Weidman can certainly be, like I said, a third pair guy or maybe be that number 7, number 8 guy, kind of like an insurance policy for the playoffs. I know some of their defensemen got banged up the other day with Letang and Dumoulin both being out for a period of time here. So with Dumoulin having a concussion as well, it's hard to predict exactly how long he'll be out. But at least they'll have some more depth in that position for the playoffs. So certainly, like I said, kind of gives them a bit of an insurance policy heading into the playoffs. The St. Louis Blues were relatively quiet today, but they did make one small acquisition, picking up defenseman Michael Del Zotto from the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a 6th-round draft choice. It wasn't really clear exactly what kind of moves the Blues would make. I didn't expect them to be sellers after they've kind of rebounded and gotten themselves back into the playoffs. I thought Doug Armstrong might be a little bit more aggressive to add a little bit more than what he did today, but either way, it gives him some more depth on the blue line, which is never a bad idea. And really, for a 6th-round pick, you really can't go wrong with that. Obviously, the Blues don't want to mess with things too much. They've had some really good games going lately. Had to just come off a pretty good winning streak. Obviously, they after starting slow with a lot of changes and some, definitely some issues with the chemistry and getting things going. They don't want to mess with that now that things are going well. So it kind of makes sense for Doug Armstrong. But overall, I thought they might add a little bit more, but still a quiet day for them is probably for the best. The Winnipeg Jets were certainly a very active team today. The Kevin Hayes trade came earlier in the day, but they did have many minor deals kind of happened right near the deadline. Many of this information kind of trickling through after the deadline had come and gone. They did pick up defenseman Nathan Beaulieu from the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for a 6th-round draft choice. Obviously, that injury to Josh Morrissey is certainly kind of concerning for that team, so they certainly want to make sure they have lots of defensive depth. Not only did they add Nathan Beaulieu, but they have some other deals here as well. They also picked up Kislevic from the Florida Panthers. And when they acquired Kislevic, they only had to give up a 2021 7th-round draft choice. So they add some more depth on defense, certainly kind of making things a little bit more deeper on the blue line. So we'll see what happens here with Josh Morrissey. Now, they've also traded Nick Petan, who's been an extra spare part for them for a long time. He's been in their system for quite a long time now. He gets to go over to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for Per Lindholm. Now, Lindholm is on a 1-year deal. He's a pending UFA for this season, so we'll see how he fits in with the Winnipeg Jets. And maybe Nick Petan can go over and maybe grab a 4th-line spot with the Maple Leafs and get a chance to actually get some more playing time and see what he can develop into here. I mean, he came out of junior with a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and we'll see if he gets more of an opportunity here with the Maple Leafs. And finally, the Winnipeg Jets also brought back Matt Hendricks for a 2020 7th-round pick from the Minnesota Wild as well to kind of cap things off here. One trade that we didn't really see coming, but we did talk a little bit about yesterday in the primer leading into the trade deadline, was the Vancouver Canucks have traded prospect forward Jonathan Dolan over to the San Jose Sharks for prospect Linus Karlsson. This comes as a pretty big surprise. I mean, up until the last day or two, I had no idea that the Canucks were kind of having second thoughts about Dolan and his development. Obviously, his first pro season playing in the American Hockey this year, I guess, hasn't been the best in their opinion, and they're already ready to move on from him. I mean, they got him from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Alex Burrows, which at the time looked like a bit of a steal, but if Dolan doesn't actually work out to be an NHL player, then obviously that trade would, you could say that Ottawa won that deal, even though Burrows wasn't a fantastic player. Did get some, a year and a half or so of time out of his services. And right now, Dolan obviously isn't going to do anything with Vancouver, and he's already off to San Jose. So it'll be interesting to see what the Sharks do with Jonathan Dolan, and if he does progress into an NHL player. He certainly seems to have some pretty good speed and skill, so I'm not quite sure why the Canucks have soured on him so early here at such a young age, but I guess we'll see here. Certainly was an interesting move that up until yesterday we didn't really see coming at all. So certainly one of the more surprising deals of the day. Now, some other teams were very, very quiet, which comes as a surprise. Lou Lamoriello and the New York Islanders were very much expected to be in the mix and kind of make some additions here. They have a lot of players on expiring contracts as well, which I didn't necessarily expect them to trade, but I thought they might bulk up and go for a run, kind of like what we're seeing under the Columbus Blue Jackets, where they have so many guys on expiring contracts. Some of them will likely sign and return, and some definitely won't. Hard to say, but the Islanders were very, very quiet. I mean, they were not expected to be in the position they're in right now. So maybe they just figure they don't want to mess too much with the team chemistry. There's no point in using their prospects as trade bait for a potential run here when it's going to be a very tough playoff run, and they're probably fortunate to be where they're at, I guess. The Edmonton Oilers also decided to stand pat and were not able to make any moves to start restructuring and rebuilding in that organization as well. So we'll see what happens here in the summertime. Obviously, the new GM, once they make that new hire, will have a big job ahead of them to kind of start tearing things down a little bit and rebuilding, getting some cap space back, and finding a way to make this team able to move forward and make some progress. But the Oilers, I did expect to see some deals out of them, but they were obviously very quiet. We did see one minor deal out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I really thought they would try to add another defenseman. The price tags must have been just a little bit too high for what Dubas was willing to pay, so he decided to stand pat and hold things still there instead of that one minor deal with the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who's been far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference and arguably the best team in the NHL, really was pretty quiet today as well. I thought they might make some small additions just for some depth pieces. They've made some big splashes here in the past few years, but they've also kind of held firm here and were quiet today, which really, based on how their season's going, is probably for the best anyway. There's no need for them to kind of mortgage anything for the future when they've already had so much success this year. Their team's really rolling quite nicely. There's no point in messing too much with it. And as of right now as well, they're also relatively healthy, which is also a good thing heading into the playoffs. But there's still a fair bit of time before we get there for sure. So obviously there's plenty of video content on the channel here today, recapping all of the deals from the trade deadline here today. So of course, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. Which teams do you really feel were the winners and losers? And what do you think were the deals that I just discussed here in this video? Let me know your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. And give this video a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.